This is Dr. Guy, and thank you for tuning in to Dr. Guy's Gumbo Talk. So this week, before we get into our topic, which Fatima is going to take the lead on this Sunday, and I'm really looking forward to this topic, I do want to remind you guys, number one, hopefully you guys are staying safe in your respective states and locations. Since everyone is still dealing with COVID-19, hopefully you guys are finding something to do to keep yourselves busy if you're required to stay in. But also, while you're in, take a few seconds to fill out your census. So everyone should have that information. I know I've been saying it week after week to remind people. It's short. It doesn't take a lot of time, you guys. It's really important that we get counted. So if you have not done so, please take an opportunity to fill out your census, and you can do it online very quickly. So I am really ready to get into this conversation because I know Steve got some off-the-wall stuff to say about this. And so I'm just going to go ahead and toss it on over to Fatima today so you can get us started on our topic. And our question that we posed to our listeners is, should women still give up their maiden name when they get married? So that's what we're going to talk about for the next hour or so. Fatima, you ready?
I'm ready.
Steve, are you ready?
So,
man, I'm excited. We'll see how this turns out for the good people who are listening. This is going to definitely draw a line in the sand and let me know who the beta men and the alpha men on the chat. So,
okay. All right, Fatima. What you got?
Okay. I'm sorry. I had to take a deep breath after hearing that. So this particular topic brings up a lot of feelings, opinions, emotions on whether or not a woman changes her last name. And so I think in order to discuss this, we have to go really sort of to the beginning, like where this tradition starts, because essentially that's what it is. It's a tradition. And so if we think about the tradition of women changing their last names to match their husbands, that origin has to do with property transfer. Because once upon a time, when men and women were married and this whole thing of the father giving the daughter away, it's really like passing on property, right? So she now becomes her husband's property. Essentially, that's what she was viewed as. Women couldn't own land or property at that time. If they brought any wealth into the marriage, that is now overseen by the husband. So if we think about it in that way, well, we don't really live like that anymore. Like, women are their own autonomous selves. We are not becoming anyone's property. It's no longer common or even normal for husbands to spank, whip, beat their wives, because at one point that was normal. That and men were encouraged to beat their wives because she was their property, and really in some ways thought of as like a child. So when we know better, we do better. And so in the same way that we realize that a lot of those things weren't necessarily healthy. Now, I'm not saying a woman changing her last name is not a healthy thing. I think that it's an individual decision. And what happens is when a woman says, I want to keep my last name, people who don't agree with it, what they hear is her saying, I'm putting my identity ahead of traditional norms. I'm putting my identity ahead of my family. And that brings up a lot of feelings. For men in particular, we have to think about sexism, and I'm going to say that word that people don't like, the patriarchy, because, and women are not immune from having sexist thoughts. So I think that a lot of women have been indoctrinated into this way of thinking. And so the thing that Steve said earlier, he said, oh, this is going to let me know who the beta males are and the alpha males are. That's the sexism that's part of the sexism that I'm talking about, because in an article, in a 2017 article in the Journal of Sex Roles, they did a study on does a woman's marital surname choice influence perceptions of her husband? And it focused on gender type traits and relationship power dynamics. In this study, what they found was that when wives retain their surname, or what some people call maiden name, their husbands were perceived as less masculine. They were perceived as holding less power in the relationship. They were perceived as being less instrumental. And so when we think about that, and given that so many men experience a lot of internal and external pressure to align with these masculine norms, hello, toxic masculinity, I think that helps to explain why this tradition also continues, because men and some women have those mindsets that, oh, he must be less of a man. He's not a real man. He's a beta male because she kept her last name. We don't think about the fact that in the same way that his last name is important to him, that her last name might be important to her too. My last name means something to me, right? I grew up a mute. That is important to me. There's a history behind my name that I am very proud of. And so to automatically assume that I care so little about it, that for the opportunity to be Mrs. So-and-so, I'm just supposed to say, okay, goodbye, Muse. Hello, Frazier. I think that's a little absurd. Now, for women who do decide to change their last name, I applaud them. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But for women who decide to keep their surname or hyphenate or whatever it is, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that their husbands are any less masculine, and it doesn't mean that she feels like she's any more or less a part of the family. And so I think that we really need to start searching ourselves and figuring out what's going on with us when we somehow decide to demonize women who make this choice. So, having said that, I'm going to throw it back to you guys, and I'm going to start with Steve because I'm sure he has a lot of ridiculous things to say. So, Steve, can you help me understand? Let's start with that statement that you made about you figuring out who the beta and the alpha males are. So can you please talk some of that toxic masculinity talk? And
no, it's not toxic masculinity. Like, we're not going to allow you to color and frame and reference what I'm saying before I speak. I think that's a very astute trick you must have picked up from watching all of these presidential debates, is to color your opponent's statements before they begin. Basically, you can do whatever you want to do. You can keep your name. You can change it to the dog last name. You can do whatever what you want to do. But if you're marrying this here man right here, we can allow you to hyphenate it, but you're going to put that last name on it. And that's just what it is. Now we can get into why that's my feeling. I'm not going to try to get into what is right for everyone, because like we discussed, everybody's belief system or however they raised is a little different. But for this individual, if you want me to go downstairs when they're a burglar and you got your last name because you still the individual that you are and we haven't gotten to a consensus because that's how I view it, as a consensus on roles. Like, that is part of the problem, is you want to do something when you want to do it, but when it's inconvenient for you, then you don't want to do it. So part of giving yourself up into a relationship is giving yourself up, and that is at least how I view it.
Oh, Fatima, can I jump in there real quick?
Yes, please.
So I agree that it is definitely the individual's choice, right? I don't think that there's a right, wrong, it's, whatever your preference is. But for Steve, I do have a question. As the only male on our show, obviously, you said whoever's marrying you is either going to take your last name or hyphenate it. So that's a personal preference. What, for you, what is it that you would have an issue with if she decided she did not want to take your last name? Like, would that be a deal breaker? Like, what does it represent to you, her taking your last name?
Well, to me, it still represents her wanting to keep her own individual thing going and us not being on one accord.
So her
that lets
taking
me know
her
you
last...
still want to date. Yeah, to me, you're not ready to move forward in the relationship as...
Hey, what?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, but I'm confused. You just lost me. So what is it that you give up? If this is about her giving up her, as you say, her desire to want to date, because that's why she takes your last name, what do you give up?
Why do I have to be giving something up? Why can't I be adding something? And I think that's the problem I have with the way it's phrased, is the phrasing is that women are giving something up and not gaining something. Why can't it be I'm giving you my last name instead of you losing your last name? So a lot of that
what
is
if she don't want it? I agree with you.
Or she don't want to be with me. I agree. I agree 100%. She don't want to be with me. That's fine.
It's a name. It's only a name. I'm just saying, it's only a name.
If it's only a name, it shouldn't be a problem.
Steve, what does that mean to you? Like, you personally, on a deeper level. So you're saying, because I mean, some of your argument is a little nonsensical to me. I don't understand.
It doesn't have to make sense to you, Miss Muse.
Well, believe me, Steve,
our brain
most
waves
of what you say does
are not configured for the same alpha.
But I'm trying to be a little highbrow today, since I am leading the show. So I'm not going to play in the mud with you too much today, Steve. I'm going to let you do that by yourself. But I'm trying to understand, you're open to a hyphenation. That's almost a completely different last name. I mean, there are some people who say hyphenating doesn't make sense because now that's like a third name. So I don't.
I mean, as long as you write my name at the end, I don't care. You can write Scooby-Doo Magoo. But as long as you write my name last, I'm fine with it.
And what does that say? So when you are out in the world and people see your last name at the end of hers, what does that mean? It means what?
It gives the connotation that we are on the same page and together. That we are a team.
But can you be okay, Fatima? My wheels are turning in my head. Can you be on the same page and be a team if her name is hyphenated?
I'm just doing that because I understand you new age women or y'all new age women. So I'm giving you that latitude,
Well, here's what's a little absurd to me. I mean, I am assuming when you decided this woman was good enough for you to even want to marry her, that you all must have been on the same page and on the same team, while all the time that you were dating and she didn't have your last name. So now somehow that we decide to make it official, can't be on the same page with you because been on the same page with you with. Help me make that make sense.
I don't have to help you make it make sense. All I'm saying, if it's good enough for Beyonce Knowles Carter and Sean Carter, it's fine for Steve.
Well, I don't think Steve has Sean Carter. Huh?
We have a question from one of our listeners. She says, what about men who have financial issues? And this is, I guess, a question about if women, in favor of women not taking their last name. But she says, what about men who have financial issues like child support, or if women have businesses already in their name?
Well, I don't know. I don't have no problem.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question was, what about men who might have financial issues like child support? So if she takes his last name, I guess that changes the child support dynamic. And then she also says, or what if women have businesses in their name? So those are reasons why she's saying in favor of not taking his taking it.
Absolutely. Right. Now the child support thing, I don't know this for sure, but it's my understanding that that's more of a marriage in general. So I think if he has child support, once they get married, whether she takes his name or not, you still are now, your income is now considered a part of the whole pot, and that's going to be taken into consideration on the child support. That's what I've heard from people who dealt with that, but I don't know if that's the same in every state. As far as the women who own businesses and things like that, I do think that that's something really important that they have to take into consideration. You know, I also think that, you know, because when you have a brand or you've established yourself professionally, it's a lot to be expected to, like, really change everything that you've been established under. That's a lot. And I also think that age and education and just life experiences and wisdom, I find that changes the opinions of a lot of women. I meet so many women who have been married and divorced, and they say if they get married again, they're not changing their name the second time around, or, you know, talk about we haven't been together in ages, and, you know, I'm still stuck with his name. You know, it's a whole deal. Like, you know, to change her name legally, but then if it, for some reason, it doesn't work out, then everything that she has to do, you know, if she's not going to keep that name anymore. And I don't think that enough weight is even given to that fact. Somebody mentioned something about, you know, that being the reason that the divorce rate is so high. Well, first of all, that's pretty inaccurate. Studies show that only 20% of women who get married have what they consider untraditional last names. So that would be keeping her surname or hyphenating. So that means the bulk of people who are getting married, those women are changing their last name. And the reason why we see that for the majority of heterosexual couples is because they don't imagine doing anything different. It's been normalized. It's a normative tradition. That's what you see, so you don't even think about it. You just feel like that's the thing to do. The other part of that is...
it's not illegal either.
Right, absolutely.
I think, you know, I've had conversations with women to where their responses is, like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no option, like, legally, you don't have to change your name once you get married. And so I was just surprised by the fact that some women just made the assumption that because it has become a norm that it's a law that you have to do it, and it isn't a law.
No,
it really
it's not a law. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, you have to take so many extra steps, you know, once you get married to go through all of the work of changing your last name. So it's not just something that happens automatically everywhere as soon as you sign the license. Like, there are extra steps and extra things that you have to do, and it's not a legal thing. It's not illegal to keep your surname, not at all.
We have another question.
Okay.
So this question is, and this one was posted from the Facebook feed, was, can you marry someone and not take their last name and still represent, or can it still show that you love and you have a bond with this person if you chose not to take their last name?
Well, I would have to pose another question. When I hear that, I think, does changing your last name or not changing your last name change your emotions? I mean, I would assume if you were marrying someone, you felt very strongly about them going into the point of wanting to be married and feeling like this is the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. So how does whether or not you change your last name change that? I don't understand the connection to the emotion.
I mean, I
don't even care about the emotion. What I'm talking about is the presentation we're making to the public, and as we're not on the same page. Because I can't quantify your emotion. I can't quantify your emotion in public. What I can do is, by the acts that we have shown the public, that we can show the public we're on the same page instead of trying to gauge some random emotion.
So you care more about what outsiders think than what is actually happening in your relationship. And this goes back to the article that I referenced earlier.
I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. What I'm talking about is the presentation. I'm talking about the ring, the cake, the ceremony, everything that goes into it. And the presentation of the marriage is as important as the marriage itself.
I can agree with that. You know what? It's interesting that we're having this conversation, the three of us. The three of us are single people who've never been married. So it's really interesting to hear this conversation. Shut up. What I would like to hear from is somebody who is either currently married or someone who's married and divorced, and what your thoughts are. And again, there's no right or wrong if you should, take this person's name. It really is a preference for the couple. But when we put that question out there, it was just interesting that we got a lot of varieties of responses about, yes, this is the reason why you should take your mate's name because it's biblical, because if you don't take their name, you don't love them, because if you don't take their name, you don't have a bond, versus another group of people that said, absolutely, I'm not taking their name. I didn't take his name. I'm never going to take that person's name if I get married again. I have a business. This is the reason why. I have an identity, and my identity is tied to my last name. Like there were all these different mixtures of responses, and so I want to hear from some married folks what your thoughts were, or again, some divorcees about this last name. So we do have a caller, so I'm going to go to the phone lines at 214. You're on the air.
Hi, Dr. Guy. This is Zandra. How are you guys doing?
Hey, Zandra.
Yes, it has been a while. But I did want to chime in on this particular thing. I've been married 32 years. I did take my husband's last name. And I was happy to take my husband's name. It's not that he forced me to. It's something that I wanted to. Yes, I grew up in the era that women did take husbands' names. That was the tradition. Didn't mean that I had to, because during that era I was in between the era of you're supposed to do this and the era of you can do what you want to do. But I was of the thought I wanted to take my husband's name. I want people to know he belongs to me. Get it? It wasn't I belong to him, but he belonged to me. That's how I thought of it.
Hear that, Steve?
Well, it's just a modern day ownership paradigm. I don't have a problem with that. Like, Ms. Sandra, what I tend to find a lot of problems with is I always think it's a generational thing. There's a section of, I want to say, Generation X that has lost their mind in the ability of the freedom given to women, not understanding because you have the right to do something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And I applaud you for being able to discern the difference between having the right and doing the right thing.
But the thing of it is, and Steve, I thank you. I'll just say that. But here's the deal. I had the right to do what I wanted to do, yes. But I wanted to take my husband's name. But there are some women, and it's not that they're going crazy because they do, because the Bible even tells you don't fall into tradition. Just because it was traditional doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean you whip your children because everybody else whipped their children. That doesn't mean that's the way you raise yours because everybody else did it. So you have to find what's good for you and your family and how you raise your children the same as your marriage. You have to find what's good for you and your marriage. Now, if it's ludicrous for you and your marriage because that's what you guys decided together, then that's fine. But here's the other thing that people have to look at. Mommy, why is your last name different than mine? Now it comes what you explain to your children. Well, why, Mommy, don't you have my last name? There are some women who don't feel right with their last name different than their children. Or let's come up with a new discussion. When the child is born, why does the child have to take the father's last name? Why not take the mother's? Because the mother has one name and the father has another. So you get into all of these different things. So when you get ready to get married, you have to make that decision in this modern day. Because modern day, you guys are doing a whole lot of things crazy this modern day. And, Steve, you talked about a whole lot of the crazy things they're doing. So don't go try and trip tradition now when you've been tripping tradition all this time. Okay? Just my opinion.
Oh, no, I'm with you 100%.
I love everything you said. And I'm glad you brought up the point because that was actually a question that we had. Someone posed the question, I've always wondered why women had to take the man's last name versus men take the woman's last name. Why would the last name matter? And I think that's a great question. And, again, we get back into that tradition. The reason why it's always the woman who does it is because it's tradition. That's just what we do. And so for some people to even suggest a man take the woman's last name, that even the notion of that seems ludicrous and absurd. Why would a husband take the wife's last name? Because we get back into those gender normative ideas. That's less masculine. He takes her last name, well, then he's somehow less of a man. But I think that that's a fair conversation. Like, if in a modern age, if we're talking about what's going to be right for our family, I think that could also be on the table. If we are talking about if we're going to do a unified last name, well, then part of the conversation maybe could be, what about her last name? Is that should be on the table as well.
That's true. And let me just make one other comment. I have a friend who's been married 40 years, and she's of the other persuasion. She's not even us. And she has taken her own last name. She never did change to her husband's last name. He's a doctor. So why wouldn't she want to take his name? He's Dr. So-and-so, but she didn't. And her children took the husband's last name. And she had to explain that the whole time through the 40-something years they were married. But as she said, because I wanted to keep my father's last name because I love my father. It's not that I don't love my husband, but I love my father. And there was a name that was given to me at birth. And it's the name that's on my birth certificate that I stay with. That was her explanation. And that's what she told her children. So why do I have to change my name from my birth name when that's what's on my birth certificate?
And I don't think that. Go ahead, Dr. Day.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I don't think that even necessarily has to be a dramatic conversation with kids. I think that if you speak to kids in the language and at the developmental level they are, then they can explain, to their friends, mommy and daddy are married, but mommy kept her last name. And I think that, I know women who, what we would consider professional, what we would not consider professional women who made the choice to not take their husband's last name and have been married for a number of years and are raising children, and their children seem to be pretty well adjusted. So, my parents were married for 36 years, together for 38. When they got divorced, my mom did take my dad's last name. It didn't stop the marriage from falling apart and them getting a divorce. So this whole thing about whether or not you take the last name, I mean, it is really a personal preference, but it doesn't say anything. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't speak to how we relate to one another, how we function as a couple. Do we have the same vision for this relationship? How we parent. Those are important things. How we handle finances. Who has whose last name, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that big of a deal.
You
guys,
it's not.
I was going to say, it depends on who the person is, you guys. We had a caller, and I was just about to go to the phone lines, and so I do hope that they call back in, because their hand had been up for a minute and we hadn't gotten to them. But we do have another comment, and so the listener says, when I was in the Marines, I got married. She didn't want to take my last name, and I felt slighted. I was much younger and less emotional intelligence than now. If I love her enough to ask her to be my wife, and she loves me enough for me to be her husband, I would not have a problem if she chooses to keep her last name. So thank you for that comment, because that aligns to sounds like what you're saying, Fatima, that the last name really doesn't matter. But
it doesn't matter.
If you can stay on there.
If you worked well enough together and were on the same page enough, I mean, asking someone to marry you is a big deal. Agreeing to marry someone is a huge deal. If we were able to get to this point with us having our individual last names, suddenly one person deciding, well, I'm going to go ahead and not change my name, it doesn't negate all of the other stuff that brought you to that point. It's not a slight.
No, I don't think it negates it. I don't think it negates it, but I think, and I can only speak for myself personally. Obviously, over the years, I have evolved as a person. But I think part of what I heard Zandra saying is also what. Not what Zandra was saying specifically, but Steve, you mentioned the appearance. What does it give the appearance of? And then Zandra, you spoke about the young lady who married 40 years and her children didn't take her name. And so I don't think that it, messes up kids in the head or somehow that, they can't function. But what I do think it does is it's the appearance of what it looks like, right? It
messes me up in the head.
Say?
It makes me think that you halfway out already.
You're already messed
you
up.
You're planning your exit.
Because she doesn't take the last name, she's planning the exit. Now you're on a whole other level.
She plans. She got a secret bank account. She got her exit strategy already. Well, I ain't even take his last name because I didn't think it was gonna work out no way.
Wow. The way your mind works still baffles me 20-plus years later. But maybe that is the thinking, Steve, that I need her to take my last name because if she doesn't, maybe it is her having one foot out the door. I don't know. Some people do say that it's a whole lot of work to go through the process of changing your last name, and so if I'm going to do it, I don't plan on doing it again. Maybe that might keep that person, more invested in the relationship. Who knows? But when it comes to having kids, maybe that is a reason why women decide to take their husband's last name, because it just makes it less complicated.
Well, Steve, do you think it could possibly be your insecurity is why you feel that she doesn't take your last name? Is why she's getting ready to leave you?
No, not at all. I mean, what what I'm saying is it's not an insecurity. It goes back to all of those things we talked about earlier about being on the same page, one accord, presentation. Say if I'm, like the young lady talked about, the child support. What if I'm in politics? My wife, she might have a corporate job. She doesn't have anything where she's branded. And in business, a lot of times you do business with people that make sense to you. So when I introduce my wife as Miss Jenkins and I'm Mr. Jackson, for those people who are my business contacts, they may shy away from doing business with me because they don't understand what I'm doing in my marriage. And since they don't understand what I'm doing in my marriage, they don't want to be affiliated with me business-wise.
Do they shy away from Jay-Z and Beyonce because of that? Because she goes by her last name and he goes by his?
She goes by Knowles Carter.
Not all the time she doesn't.
Not all the time, but in terms of what we know her as a personality, and that's her business. What I'm saying is for someone who doesn't have a reason or has branded themselves separately.
That's what I'm saying. You're saying somebody who hasn't branded themselves separately. Okay.
Right. Like if you don't have any, and even to that degree, I don't have a problem with you being, Dr. Phil and then, you can always sign differently than what you're branded. I'm not asking you to change your intellectual property if you got a website and all those things. What I'm talking about is when you sign official paperwork. So,
I agree with you with that part.
So, and this is what I'm saying, Ms. Sandra. Half these women ain't branded to do nothing. They just being selfish. They ain't got no website. They ain't nobody like that.
Because it's so selfish. It's so selfish to want to keep my name. That's so selfish.
No,
whereas
you can
not
keep your
selfish
name
of
and
you to expect me
don't
to
have
change
mine.
it.
It's 100% fine.
I think
I'm not over here
selfish.
wrestling you to take my name.
I think it's incredibly selfish for men to automatically assume a woman is going to change her last name if they get married.
I think it's incredibly selfish that people want 2-carat diamond rings, and if they're a burglar downstairs, you're going to look at me to go because I'm in the bed and sleep like you. But, I do it anyway because I love you. There's a lot of stuff we can consider selfish, but it's still within the purview of our responsibility when we're in a marriage to someone else. Because we've taken these roles. No, I'm just saying we've assigned ourselves these roles within this relationship. But what I hear, and this is just a lot of times more from educated Generation X women, is they go through what I've talked about. They have the right to do something, so all of a sudden they want to break everything down and say, I don't want to do it because I don't have to. Not understanding these are some of the things.
It's only a problem when it's not what you want. It's only a problem because it's something that she wants.
What did I told you? I told you I don't have any problem with you. I don't have any problem with you keeping your branding if you have a reason. What I'm saying is these people, by and large part, don't have a reason. Yes, you have a reason.
So he gets to dictate what's an appropriate reason or not? Get out of here. Give me a break.
That's a TV show from the 80s.
Do we have another question? do we have another question?
I do want to pose this, and I don't know if, it's hard for me to even open my mouth sometimes and say I agree with you, Steve, because, sometimes you're so far out there. But part of your statement I do agree with. I think that it is important about appearance and presentation and things that relate to that aspect of the relationship. But here's my question. My question is, when we talk about women taking the man's last name, are women taking last names because, one, it's just the norm, so I follow the norm? That's one. Two, am I taking his last name because I personally desire to carry his last name and leave my last name, right? The whole idea behind cleave to your husband now and leaving your mother and father, which is a different concept. Or three, am I taking his last name because if I don't have his last name, that means I don't love him, right? Like, there are all these different reasons why people are saying you should be taking this person's last name, which it is every individual person's choice to do so. But see, where you lose me is when you say if she does not take my last name, it's because I feel like she's not fully invested. And you get that from her just not taking a last name. Is that what you're saying?
Definitely, because my view of marriage is that we will be in this space together, and it, in my mind, it kind of takes you off on your own separate agenda.
Oh, God forbid he has any dreams or aspirations outside of you.
No, all she needs to do is make sure dinner's ready, and I'll make sure she got some shoes while she's pregnant.
You did not go there.
That's what she wants me to say. You know, she can be barefoot and pregnant or in the Amazon with some loincloth. That's basically Fatima's idea.
What? Here it comes. What did you say?
Yeah, your idea of what I think of women is, you know, they're pretty much, you know, submissive baby factories, you know, who need to be only worried about recipes and child rearing. So, you know, that is how you tend to try to paint me.
Oh, is that how I try to paint you, or is that the picture that you display for us? I don't think that I'm painting any picture, Steve. I think that I use your words to give me an idea of what you think and how you view women. You say a lot of problematic things, a lot of really sexist things, and based on the words that you say, you make me think that you expect women to be barefoot, baby, slaving at a hot stove baby factories. That's because of the words that come out of your mouth, Steve.
Well,
but Steve,
I recall I was told that if a man was giving his woman sex right, he wouldn't have any problems by somebody on a show a week or two ago. So.
Before you respond, Fatima, because we have a couple of I know you want to respond to him. I am going to get to the phone lines. Carla, I see you. I'm getting ready to get you. But we do have we had another comment. And so our listener said that taking his last name should be a symbol of union. And so, again, that's one of the examples that Steve mentioned earlier. I know, you said that earlier. But anyway, I'm going to go to the phone line.
It was a man who said that. I'm not surprised it was a man who gave that comment.
It's a woman.
Always trying to separate us.
It's a woman. It was a woman listener. But if you're just tuning in, you guys, our question today is, should women still give up their maiden names when they get married? And I'm going to go to the phone lines, 214. You're on the air.
Dr. Guy, Brother Montgomery, you there?
Oh,
Dr.
Mr.
Guy.
Montgomery.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right.
Okay,
so,
Mr. Man.
Yeah, so let me chime in on that. I don't know how far I'm just chiming in, so I don't know how far the conversation has gotten. I see we got 15 minutes, so y'all might have covered this topic. My opinion, being married, I do believe that the woman should take the man's last name. It does shows union. I does believe it shows the cleavage, like you said, when you get married, you cleave from your parents and become a union together with the man. And it's also showing a slight sign of submissiveness. And submissiveness is not a bad thing if we're going to go with biblical. I mean, I think when you take this man, you're following this man. So when I take your last name, I'm following my husband. So I'm okay to be Mrs. Guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to follow him. The two last names, my opinion is like, yeah, I want some ownership too. So, yeah, I'm going to take your last name, but I want my last name because it has some relevancy, and I want to keep my, tradition going on. So if you're going to do it biblically, depending on your religion, if you're going to do it Christianity way, yeah. And I'm not saying just because you have two last names you're not a Christian. I don't want to say that. But if we're going to go traditionally with the Bible, I think that's why it's been practiced so many years that it's one last name. That's just my 2 cents.
I have a question. I mean, people keep throwing out, we're going to do it biblically. We're going to do it biblically. Can you please let me know exactly where in the Bible it says that a woman has to take a husband's last name? Because I keep hearing leave and cleave and stuff like that, but that's an interpretation. So what it sounds like to me is that a lot of people are interpreting certain passages in the Bible and making it make sense for the opinion you already have. I've never heard that it's a sin for a woman to keep her last name. So if it's not a sin, then I think it's okay with God.
Right. So everything that's not a sin is okay with God? Is that what you're saying? Everything that's not a sin is okay with God? That's what you're saying?
What I'm saying is, I think that I think that for a lot of Christians, we are concerned about not sinning, right? Living a life as much as possible that's free of sin, because we know that's the stuff that God hates. God hates sin. So it's not a sin.
No, it's not a sin. It's not a sin per se. I mean, yeah, I don't want to. And I said that you can be a Christian with two last names. God's not going to say, oh, yeah, by the way, you can give up your last name for your husband. It's not a sin, but I mean, if you read the Bible and when it says being submissive, but the men is also being submissive to Christ, like the church. So it's so many things, and I think that's why we have so many pastors, because everybody interprets things differently, religious-wise. But again, everything today on the show is an opinion. As me per se been married, I prefer a woman to drop her last name to add my last name. Not making much debate. Hopefully that she loves me to where she wants to be me. Matter of fact, my ex-wife to this day still has my last name. And when we got married, she didn't.
Though.
Probably.
Right?
But I mean, I get that. We had that conversation. I said, the last name. I was messing with her. I said, you still love me with my last name. She's like, no, it's because we got kids. But I know a lot of women who change their last name, they back to their make name because they just don't want to get attached to nothing with their husband. Maybe it was a bad relationship. They don't want no memory. So it's still a decision making. I just mess with her until they still love me. That's why I have my last name. That's just a joke.
I just want to applaud you for saying the word submissive on the line, man. That takes a lot of nerve, and I applaud you for saying the word.
Fantasia came out a year ago and says nothing wrong with being submissive. She went and brought all the black women attacked Fantasia and said, how dare you say you submissive to your husband? And he said, my wife is submissive to me. Ain't that right, Fantasia? She said, yes, I am submissive to my husband. I have no problem with it. All the black women attacked Fantasia for that. What part of that is wrong?
No, all the black women didn't attack Fantasia.
No, they did not.
For that statement.
Well, they attacked her because she was messing with a married man, but that's not the story.
No, but I'm talking about when she got married to her new husband. She said, I'm submissive to my new husband.
Okay.
She came out and said, I'm submissive to my new husband. And everybody's like, Fantasia, how dare you say you're submissive? And she's like, I'm submissive. I love my husband.
That's the interpretation. It goes back to, how people interpret things. But my question to you, Mr. Montgomery, is would you, if you loved your new wife to the ends of the world, and she says, hey, how about you taking my last name?
Would you? Come on, Doctor. I can't believe you said that. No.
Would you?
If she loved him, she knew better than to answer the question.
But if you love her to the ends of the earth, what would prevent you from taking her last name?
No, come on.
Because it still symbolizes union, though. But it still symbolizes union, right?
The Bible
you better not come around the barbershop either.
I know you better come around the barbershop either.
Because it's one name. It's one name.
You might well get yourself a set of clippers and cut your head on.
Okay. Tanisha, when we get married, we get married with the Bible. Tanisha, when we get married, the pastor has the Bible open.
Are you on the Bible in this now? So your response is you wouldn't take her last name because it's in the Bible that you can't take her last name? You gonna go out there and tell that story to the world. You're gonna tell the world a lie.
Let me just go ahead and help you out. I'm a man. I'm stinky. I need to shave. I put my foot down, and I ain't taking nobody's last name, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's why I laughed at it. I can't believe Dr. Guy said that. I'm like, are you serious? Real men.
I said it because if it's about union, union means one name. Then why can't it be one name? Because it's still union.
Watch this. Okay.
Because I'm running the show. That's why.
Okay. Would you?
Because you running the show.
Okay.
Yes, because it don't say submit to your wife. It says submit to your husband. It tells your man to be righteous.
All right, Tanisha, let me ask you
so
a question.
We have role problems. So if you want to be the man, that's fine. You go find somebody to let you be the man.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
But it says after, you know what it says after wives submit yourselves to your husband? It says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for it. How did Christ love the church? That's a sacrificial love. So how are you sacrificing for this relationship?
When the bird went out, I'm getting that pistol and I'm going out there and I'm taking the brick.
In fact, I think the greatest sacrifice, I know I'm talking. I think the greatest sacrifice that a man can make in a situation like this is saying, you know what, I'm going to put my ego to the side and we really can have a real conversation about what union is and me not automatically expect you to change your last name. No, we're not going to use the Bible when it's convenient for you.
Anytime we got a problem in a relationship, the man just needs to give up his ego.
And not really talk about the other stuff that it says. So you don't get to pick and choose where you use the Bible and where it's applicable. Because I think that sacrificial love is much bigger than any of this other stuff. So show me how you sacrifice. Sacrifice your ego. How about that?
Nah, we can't kill that.
Right. So
my ego is what got me with you. Because if I didn't think I was something, I would never approach you.
So these are husband and wives.
So Mr. Montgomery, you're not gonna answer my question.
Yeah, let me answer. Are these the husband and wife on the phone talking?
Oh no. We sworn bitter enemies.
No, the two of these. No, this is not a husband and wife on the phone.
Sworn bitter enemies. Rivals.
They just argue like a husband and wife. They just
Cats and dogs.
Okay. I thought they were just husband and wife. Okay. All right, go ahead. Come on. You said what now? Tanisha, let's go.
No, so you're not going to answer my question. You just going to tell me biblically it's a no? Is that what you're going to tell me?
Okay, hold up. Yeah.
Because I just need to know, because I got another caller I need to get to. So before I get to that caller, I just need to know, is your response to me no, because it's biblical reasons?
I would say biblical, and like you said, male ego. I cannot take the woman's last name if I'm the man. The woman is marrying a man and saying, I want to follow this guy. Guys don't marry women and say, you know what, babe, I want to follow you. That's just not. That's why women say, I want a real man. I want a man. Because I want somebody I can follow, somebody to lead. So if you want that man to lead, that makes sense.
You know what?
They don't know what they want, man. I understand what you're saying. They don't know.
Next week, we doing Battle of the Sexes, Mr. Montgomery. We doing Battle of the Sexes.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Next week, be ready. Battle of the Sexes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Before you take your so let me just say this. So, okay, you were talking about the last name thing, but we have seen on the internet, and I'm not going to change your show topic, but you see women have taken pictures proposing to the men, and I have heard women like, what the hell are these women doing proposing to men?
Yes,
like,
yes.
Well, then you haven't been paying attention.
Yes, we have.
You haven't been paying attention.
I don't catch all the shows. I'm sorry. So, Dr. Guy, you okay with proposing to a guy?
What's huh?
You okay with proposing to a guy? You okay with proposing to a guy?
What'd you say? What am I okay, or am I okay with women doing it? Because I'm gonna tell you here, this woman not gonna do it. But if another woman is okay with doing that, knock yourself out. Because if it's good for the geese, it's good for the gander.
Good for the gander,
but I'm not the one. I'm not the one. I'm just gonna tell you that for me.
And I think that's what me and the guy on the phone are saying. We're not the one that's gonna follow a woman last. We're not, but there are women, there are guys who do that. Yeah.
They're going to be them fellas that can't go back to the barbershop. We know
5% of the population of men have changed their last name to their wives. Absolutely. There are some.
For real?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. Black men?
5% of men have changed their names to their wives' names. Yes, it's happening.
I got to research
it.
Okay.
And 3% of them probably in Atlanta and got something else going on.
You know what? I'm gone. I'm getting my next caller. Thanks, Mr. Montgomery.
All right.
Okay, so we're going back to the phone lines at 317. You are on the air.
Hi.
Hello.
Is that me?
Hey. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So
we do.
I just wanted to say that
I do think that a woman should change her name to her husband's last name. And the reason why I say that is, well, I'm a Christian, and I'm basing everything that I say on the Bible and what the Word says. And I know you guys already covered it when you talked about Ephesians 5:23, when it says, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. So I don't argue against that because I respect the Word, and because I want to be obedient, and because I love God, I'm going to do what His Word says. So for me to marry someone, it has to be someone that I respect and that I feel that I can submit to, because I understand my role and I'm okay with that. And I know it also goes on and says that when they talk about leaving and cleaving, your parents, and it made me think about a comment that was said earlier about a female that said that she didn't want to change her name to her husband's name because she loved her father. Well, that scripture right there serves its purpose in that manner, because when you are marrying someone, you're becoming one with him. And I think a lot of us are beginning to change a lot of things, and I think it's great progress with the Me Too movement and with women and all of that, but I think we are just beginning to change everything and making it our own. I mean, if you want to marry someone and keep your own name and he's okay with that, that's fine. But I want my marriage to be honored by God. When I'm getting married, I'm marrying according to God's word. So even though I'm submitting to God, submitting to my husband, we both are submitting to God. So in order to do that, we have to follow what His example and what His word says. So regardless of what everybody else is doing in the world, I'm not just going to jump on and do it because everybody's saying, hey, you have a right to do it. I'm just going to do what is best and right, because at the end of the day, I'm worried about serving God and doing what's best for Him. And I married someone that I don't have a problem submitting to, because he shows me in so many ways how he submits to me and how he, loves and respects me. So I think the problem is we have a lot of people marrying people that they don't respect or they really don't love, or not showing them what true love is, and that makes it makes you not want to submit to that person, So I think if everybody
let me ask a question.
I think if everybody would, really slow down and, really find someone that's compatible, I don't think anyone would have any problem with doing whatever for the other person. Because at the end of the day, my husband will do whatever for me. And at the end of the day, I do whatever for him.
But are you talking about the same thing, though?
Yeah, we're talking about taking that last name. That's what makes it one.
But it's taking the last name, submitting, though. Like, does that mean, so if you don't take someone's last name, does that mean that you're not submitting or going to be submitting to your spouse because you did not choose their last name? Or is that just your interpretation of the scriptures that you read? That's the interpretation of the scripture, because therefore, as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be to their own husband in everything. Everything is His name. Right, but does name...
That matters. Yes. To me. You're asking me the question, yes, that name matters.
Right, I'm asking you.
Now, if you guys feel like you don't have to, then that's fine. I mean, you guys do whatever you want. I also believe, too, that when you get married to someone, and you guys have irreconcilable difference, that God doesn't honor that. Even though you get divorced and we go out here and we marry someone else, then basically that's adultery, because God doesn't honor that. Now, if the husband cheat on you or is beating on you, then that's when God is like, okay. But then again, this is me. This is how I feel. This is what the word says to me and speaks to me. But people may not believe that. So to me, everybody's doing everything. And I don't know what they're basing it on. If you're basing it on God, then you're going to do what the scripture says. And it's not, everybody try to, break it down to support their meaning. But, if you just go clearly off what the word says, then it is what it is. This is what the word says. And if you want to do your thing, then do it.
I don't think be quiet, Steve. I don't think people can go by just what the word says, because people read the word and it's subjective to every single person who reads it. So depending on, and proof of that is the fact that we have multiple denominations, that we have Pentecostal, we have Baptist, We have full God, like we have so many denominations and all identify as being Christian, but can read the same scripture and they can still all walk away with a different interpretation of it. And so I think you can still read the same words and someone interprets it completely different. Just because that's how we are, that's what we read. There's no universal interpretation of scripture other than things that are very clear that say, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery. Like those things are clear.
But if you read the word, God has ways in his scriptures to support what he says. That's why when you're reading like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, it seems like they're repeating the same thing. You have different people that are saying the same thing in different ways. So just because different people read it, we really shouldn't come up with different understanding of it. I think that what people do is we find ways to support. We find ways to support our own belief or to justify what we're doing. But at the end of the day,
you are right, and that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Right.
So
at the end of the day, it's only one word.
Doesn't mean that it's, but just because we interpret it different doesn't mean that my interpretation, which is different from yours is right and mine is right also. If it's saying the two different things, then we're saying making two different things out of it, but the truth still lies within the word. That's all I'm saying.
The truth still lies within the word, but everybody's truth is their own personalized truth. Just like in Pentecostal, they don't believe that women should wear pants or makeup. But that's what they read in the scripture, the same scripture that I read as someone who grew up Baptist. I read the same scripture.
And that was in the Old Testament, though, too. When you're talking about the wearing the pants and all that stuff was in the Old Testament. You know, I mean, when you know the word, and I think that's why Bible study is so good, because it doesn't just give you a scripture, but it breaks down the analogy of that scripture, where it comes from, why it was said, when it was said in that context, because people can take a word and use it, and if you don't know the word, then you believe, okay, yeah, this is exactly what it's saying, but when it says study to show ourselves approved, and you have all these different ways of studying the Bible, like the Thomas Change, the Life Application Bible, you see that it's more, I mean, it supports what the true meaning is saying, because it goes back within the Bible and support a lot of, but I know.
The foundation is that it makes sense that when you made the decision to get married, you said this aligns for me to take his name, right? But for somebody else who didn't choose to take their husband's name, I'm just saying I can't personally say that person isn't a Christian, that person doesn't follow Scripture. For them, just taking the last name is something completely different. That's all I'm saying.
So my question, though, is, when you get married, why are we getting married? I mean, are we getting married because we want to do right by God? Or are we getting married because for legality reasons, like we want to make sure that this is if your reasoning to get married is because, you want to do right by God, then you're going to follow that guideline that God said. I think a lot of us are getting married.
That's assuming that they're Christians, though. Like, I can't make the assumption that everybody's getting married as a Christian, because they're not. There's a lot of non-believers that get married. I'm
not asking you why people are getting married. I'm just saying, why are people? I mean, the question lies with, my thing is, why are they getting married then? Like, if you're getting married because you're saying that I want to do right by God, then you're going to follow the guidelines of the word. If you're getting married because, you just want to be married or whatever, and you want to do things your way, then whatever your guidelines are, then follow it. So I'm just saying, to each its own when it comes to, if you're saying I want to change my name, I mean, I think the man should take my name. If you're getting married and it has no basis on the word, then you can do whatever you want to. And I'm not speaking ill against anyone. You do whatever you want to do. And I'm not I'm not judging for any of that. But I'm just saying, I think that we are getting so far away from marriage, what it really is about, and so far from the word, that everything you're making everything just whatever the people say. I mean, everything is going to change in a minute. It's not going to be any grounding or anything. Everybody is just changing things up. I mean, in a minute, I know how we talk about men and women being equal, but anatomy-wise, they're not equal. I mean, a man is way much stronger than a woman physically, and I feel that women are way much stronger than men mentally. I mean, and it was designed to be that way. I think the unequalness make us equal in a sense. It balances everything out. That's why there's a male and there's a female. But we making everything about one thing, on the same line, when it's
not that it's because this person is stronger than this person, that means that this person is better. I just think everything is designed for that intention and for that way, because there's so much other, I don't know if I can explain it, but I just think, we make
they complement each other.
Yeah, I think we just
that men and women complement each other.
Yeah, and I think that when we talk about the last name, I mean, I think it's out of fear a lot of time. I mean, I could be wrong, and please forgive me if I'm offending people or whatever, but I feel like the reason about why it has to be the last name, or why this man has to, I think it's because of our own, things that we have experienced in life that make us want to protect ourselves. And so we just start creating these rules, and this is how we, if we're going to do it, this is what makes us comfortable, so we're going to do it that way. And we're forgetting to trust the process, and we're forgetting to trust God, and we're forgetting about all of that. It's about, this is how I protect myself, and this is what's right. And, just, so I just think we kind of get away from things sometimes, but that's just my opinion.
I agree totally, wholeheartedly. I think what I've been trying to express also through this is, with this feminist movement, it's been masked that what we're trying to do is say that men or women are equal in a lot of ways that they're not. I think we used to have a better intelligence that wasn't necessarily stated. When something was heavy, I picked it up because I'm built to pick up heavy things better than you are. Not saying that you can't, but It just makes more sense for me to pick up heavy things. Dr. Guy always teases me because I don't say women can't wear pants. I just say a vagina works better in a skirt. It just does. And I think we just need to get back to some of these common sense. The sun isn't stronger than the moon. It just works differently. So, to be able to understand these nuances and differences instead of trying to stomp our feet and do everything that, quote unquote, a man does, or even, these situations where now we want men to have babies. Like, we just have gotten to the point in society where we've gotten too smart for ourselves in large part.
The sun is stronger than the moon. But continue. The sun is stronger than the moon. That's just that statement. The sun isn't stronger than the moon. It's just not factual. The sun is stronger than the moon. You need to stop saying that.
Not at night. The moon is way stronger than the sun at night.
Okay, that's just ridiculous. I think that this is less about, because I want to kind of piggyback on what Dr. Guy was saying about, like, interpretation, and I said this earlier, about, like, people, like, how, what you learned growing up in the church and the interpretation of reading certain things and what that means to you. And then someone from the same overall Protestant umbrella, but in a different religious tradition, might interpret those things to mean something completely different. So when we get into these conversations about, doing what the word says, it's hard for me to participate in it, because what the word says a lot of times it looks different from somebody from one religious tradition to someone in another. And I am not comfortable saying, well, the religious tradition that says it this way is the one that's right. And I said this at the beginning, I don't have a dog in the fight for you just in general across the board. I think that women need to do what's right for them and what's right for their personal union. I think my overall issue is really just the automatic assumption that this is the way that it goes, and that somehow if she thinks anything different, that she's less submissive or he's less masculine or any of the other negative adjectives or traits that we want to apply to someone choosing to travel a different road when it comes to last name. If I take and look at myself personally, I think if I had gotten married in my 20s when I was young, I probably couldn't wait to be Mrs. So-and-so. And now, I really feel like a lot of that in some ways was youth and immaturity, because that was just based on what I saw as the norm. It really wasn't me thinking for myself or making an informed decision. I was just going to do that because that's what you do. But with age and wisdom, at this point in my life, I have no intention of changing my last name. And not because of a feminist agenda or, whatever other obscene or absurd thing that Steve might say, but really just because this is where I am. And in the same way that he takes pride in his last name and I take pride in my last name, it doesn't have anything to do with my father. This is who I am. And so even if I changed it, the way I look at it, I would never really be, let's just say the last name is Jones. I'm a Jones by changing my last name, but I'm not really a blood Jones. I'm not really I haven't lived the Jones experience. My identity, everything that makes me, the experiences that I've had, they have all happened and been encompassed in youth. And that's who I am. I imagine if I had children, it's a no-brainer to me they'd get their dad's name. This is me. I'm just talking about me. Some people might say, well, that's crazy. If you want to keep your name, then why do they automatically get his name? It just works like that for me. And if they had friends that automatically said, oh, hey, Mrs. Jones, I would answer to Mrs. Jones. I wouldn't correct those kids and say, oh, no, I'm actually Miss Muse. I wouldn't do that because people will automatically call me Mrs. Jones. And I'm not going to go out of my way to correct them, but I'm also not going to take the legal step and go through all of the stuff to change my name. And if I'm introducing myself to somebody, I will always say, hi, I'm Fatima LaJuan Muse. This is also a cultural issue because when I was dating the Kenyan, number one, because I love me a good Kenyan, we were having a conversation about marriage, and I let him know, listen, not changing my last name. And he was just kind of like, why would you? Like, that's not even, he was like, that's not like a part of our culture. Like, you have your name, I have my name. Like, that's not a thing. So I think it's also important that we bring up in this conversation that this is also like cultural Western thinking. This isn't across the board, the world over. This is how it goes. And because
one of our listeners actually said that Brandy, she says she works in the State Department and she's exposed to a variety of cultures. She says it is only a British English custom for the woman to take her husband's name, but Chinese, Indian, and many other cultures, this is not a thing. And so she asked if we were having the conversations because we're in America. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's cultural. This is not a world over thing. And you know what? He was a huge Christian. He was so Christian, in fact, that sometimes I was like, he might be a little too Christian for me. But in his Christian tradition, which was very conservative and very dogmatic, that's not a thing. That somehow if the woman didn't change her last name, that they were less of a union, less biblically aligned. So I also feel like if we're having this conversation, we need to be specific. And as she said, talk about the fact that this is a Western ideal. This is British and American since America was largely colonized by the British. So it makes sense.
So as long as you are in these here United States of America dealing with these here United States of American westernized men, that's what you're going to end up with. If you don't want to do that, then go on to Kenya. I knew you were going to tell me he was Nigerian. I knew that wasn't going to be the case. So as a man, I understand. Man to man, Fatima, I understand you want to keep your last name. I respect it. I'm just saying, for what we're doing over here in this part of the Matrix is unacceptable. That's all.
Well, I was looking forward to this topic today because after we put it out there on Facebook and got a variety of responses, I was really intrigued by what was going to come out of the show today. And we got a variety of discussion. Again, as you said, Fatima, this isn't a right or wrong. It is really up to the preference of the individual, and not just the individual, the couple, right? That's a discussion that both the soon-to-be husband and wife, that's the discussion that they're having together, and that's a decision that they have to make, and nobody else. And so I do thank the callers that we had, Mrs. Rutledge, Mr. Montgomery, Mrs. Walls. Thank you guys for your comments today and for joining us in the discussion. As we prepare to wrap up, Steve, we're going to go to you first because you're the only male on our show. So what are your closing remarks for our listeners today?
This has been in large part very educational to hear such disrespect being spewed over these airwaves today. So all you men out there, we always talk about this, value yourself, brother. If the woman don't want to take your last name, she doesn't value you like she think you do. That is not that you are taking away from her. She's getting your last name. It's a gift. And if she refuses that gift, she's refusing you and everything that you are willing to do for her. That sacrificial love, when it's cold and you give her your jacket but you freezing, that's that sacrificial love that they're talking about. But when it's time for them to sacrifice and put their chips all into the table, and you look around the corner and she got a couple hidden in her purse because she planned her exit out, that's her bank account and that last name, brother. So make sure you get that last name. Don't make it easy for them to leave. Make sure you get that buy-in and that commitment. It's just like anything else. When they go in to get that credit card, man, you can put down your job information, but they still need to run your social, man. Get all of that. Get everything from them. So that'll ensure that at least you got buy-in in your relationship. Because if you don't, we're going to laugh you up out the barbershop. Jody going to be chasing your girl, wondering why she ain't got your last name. We're going to wonder who running the house. So if all possible, if you don't want to get laughed out the barbershop and them gigolos chasing your woman, talk about, I love him, I just ain't took his last name, and they're like, yeah, whatever, take my phone number down. I know you don't really want to be with him. I'm just trying to give you some advice so you won't have to go through those troubles. But go ahead, Joe.
Fatima.
I despise him. Here's what I have to say. First, I'm going to speak to the ladies, and I'm going to say, women's liberation was not about, or it wasn't only about women getting equal pay for equal work or being able to come out of the home and into the workforce and being able to vote and, all of these other things, changing laws that make it illegal for your husband to beat his property. It was really about the ability to choose, to make a choice. You get to choose whether or not you are a working wife and or mom or a stay-at-home wife and or mom. And you get to make that choice in collaboration with your partner. You get to choose whether or not you change your last name to his last name or you keep your own surname. And you get to have that conversation and make that choice with him. And if your strong feeling and choice is that you keep your own name, you are not somehow operating outside of biblical principles or somehow wrong or somehow challenging his masculinity or somehow less of a woman or a feminist monster. You're not any of those things. You are a person who has autonomy, over your own being, and you get to have some choice in your life and how you identify yourself. And if you choose to identify yourself in union with him, sharing one last name, and that name is his, that is okay. And if you decide to identify yourself and you by hyphenating, that's okay. And if you choose to identify yourself by keeping your maiden name, that is okay too. So women, choose for you, not because of what society says, not because of what traditional norms are, not because of what people are going to think if they see you and these quote-unquote possible business opportunities that might judge him because you kept your name. Don't make a choice based on external influences. You make a choice based on your internal mind and well-being. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Fatima and Steve. And so I am really going to keep my closing remarks short. And that is, to each and every one, do you, boo. That's all I got. Hopefully doing you can make you guys happy. So as always, you guys, it's been a blast. I'm so glad you guys tuned in today to Dr. Guy's Gumbo Talk. Don't forget to tune in next week because we're bringing it back, the Battle of the Sexes. You guys don't want to miss that next Sunday at 4 o'clock. So everyone who listened today, thank you. You guys be safe. Don't forget to Facebook and tweet it, pass it on, tell a friend about Dr. Guy's Gumbo Talk. Everyone have a blessed week, and I will talk to you guys next Sunday. Bye-bye.
Yeah, be safe. Make sure y'all wiping down everything. We don't want you to catch that thing out there.
And inhaling steam does not kill the coronavirus.
It doesn't?
The two of you guys together, a hot mess. Bye.